When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
Dr. Raj.
Dr. Raj Dasgupta.
The most interesting pulmonologist in the world.
Welcome to the Dr. Raj Podcast, a show all about empowering knowledge, addressing difficult topics, raising awareness, and being positive. Dr. Raj is a quadruple board-certified physician, associate professor of clinical medicine, and the associate program director of internal medicine residency. He was a co-host on the TNT series Chasing the Cure with Ann Curry, as well as a regular on the TV show The Doctors. And now, here's our show.
Hi, and welcome to the Dr. Raj Podcast. And what is this a podcast of? A podcast of happiness and wellness, great stories, amazing people, and urinary incontinence. Yes, I did say that. It's true. This is actually going to be a very special podcast because sometimes I feel we don't talk about those taboo things. And one thing that we don't talk about that often in society is about the bathroom problems. And I feel that this needs to be talked about from a medical sense, from a social sense. And let me just, for the people who don't know what I'm talking about, who didn't laugh at my little joke, urinary incontinence is the loss of bladder control. And it really varies. It could be from laughing at one of my bad jokes and you leak a little urine, from a cough or sneeze and you leak a little urine, to having complete inability to control urination at all. So it is something we see in the hospital, out of the hospital. We see it in kids who have special needs, adults as they get older. So I really wanted to interview someone who knows the topic well. And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Deanna Vigliotta. And I said that correct. I was practicing many times before my podcast. And Deanna has an extensive 30-year healthcare history in healthcare sales, and she's a sales management background. Deanna is the national sales manager for Seni, a premium brand of adult incontinence products. She and her Seni teammates are on a quest to shift the mindset in the United States from adult incontinence products being viewed as a disposable commodity to high-performing incontinence products being viewed as a critical component to the continuum of care. And I love that. So, Deanna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. And thank you, Dr. Raj, for the introduction and the opportunity to be here today. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, likewise. So, you know what? Let's just jump in here. So, like my intro, the first thing I want to know is, why do you think incontinence is still such a taboo topic?
Yeah, my personal opinion is that there's a lot of stigma and taboo around it, as you just mentioned. You know, if you think about all of us as young children, toddlers, if you think of the one thing that probably most of us got accolades for, our very first job well done, was being potty trained. And
well said.
Right? Johnny gets a truck. Yeah, mom's making a phone call to grandma to clap hands that Sally used the big girl potty. And I really think there's something there to it that we have in us, that you don't void urine. You use the toilet accordingly. And that's kind of across all races, socioeconomic demographics. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what you do. That is the one thing that we have common ground as little toddlers. So that's my personal opinion of why is it still taboo and stigma. And then as we age and you think back to younger kids, right? Mom or dad might be in the back in the driving the car and say, hey, no potty talk back there, right? I think these things could play into why there's stigma and embarrassment and taboo around it, as we're just in our culture. You don't do that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to actually double back because, one question I wish I started off with is, you seem like a really nice person before we started. How did you even get into incontinence? I mean, how was, of all the different things you can put your paws into, how did, this become your jam,
Yeah, that's a great question. And the honest answer is I've got an extensive background, as you mentioned, in healthcare sales, radiology primarily. And I was looking for a new role.
Yeah.
And there was an ad on Indeed. And I was all ready to take another role in another vertical. And I got an email from what turns out to be now our COO of Seni USA. And she said to me, do you want to meet for coffee? You applied for this role. And I thought, what did I apply for? Incontinence products. And so I met her, and our company is a Poland manufacturer. She and my other colleague that came to talk with me were so kind, so transparent, so honest about the mission of the company to change outcomes. And I always enjoy working with older adults. And it piqued my interest. That's something that started as these people are really nice and I really like this and there's a need. And then it led to a little bit more research and so forth. But wow, yes, there's a need. We can help change outcomes. But it really, at the core, Dr. Raj, was a company that's kind, nice, and transparent. And that's a company that I want to work with and be on board with that mission. So that really was the draw to the role. And it has been, I've never looked back. I'm just in love with the product, the mission, the people. I always say it's a conduit. Those products are conduits to better outcomes. That's what we're offering, better outcomes for people.
I did my due diligence. I went to your websites and clicked on your little promos and stuff. You guys look great, man. And you could tell through the information that you give to the general public beyond just selling your products. You guys believe in it. And I love that you're trying to incorporate medical stuff into it, which I totally dig. Quick question. You said your COO is from Poland. Is that right?
The company is out of Poland. She's from Romania, but she started.
I love it. Yeah. I have a huge place in my heart for Polish people. I love their food. My question to you is, have you been to Poland?
I have.
Where's your favorite city in Poland?
Well, I have to say Tourun, Tourun. Are you familiar with it?
My favorite city is Krakow, and I probably pronounced that wrong, but it's very hip and cool. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the secondary Warsaw, Where is your city? Is it up north? Is it right in the middle somewhere?
Yeah, ours is about 3 hours from Warsaw. It is, in fact, Tourun, which little known secret, people, it's the gingerbread capital.
I'll take. I believe you on that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful city when it comes to architecture and cobblestone, and it's magnificent. I'm from Boston originally, and it reminds me of Boston on steroids. It's magnificent, but so we have the largest annual long-term care conference every year in Poland, and I've been
fortunate. Way. All right, me and you, we're going to go over there, drink some beers, eat some kielbasa.
I like it. I like the way you think. We're going to have to circle back on that.
Yeah, we're going to have some pierogies together, dude.
I like it. All
right, so I love little things. But anyways, back to incontinence. So let's give a statistic out here. How common is incontinence in older adults?
Very common. Lots of information out there, but about It changes, but about 60% of older adult women are incontinent at some level. Less for men. Everything that I read is somewhere between 15 and 30%. So it's less. And I think there's about 25 million people in the US with some level of incontinence. It doesn't mean that everybody is severely incontinent, but it can be light, moderate, heavy. But we work with a lot of older adults who are living in long-term care communities, and that prevalence is, gosh, can be as high as 50, 75, 90% of folks that may be in a skilled health facility can be incontinent. But
I believe you. That sounds about right. And would I be wrong to say that that number may even be a little bit lower? You know what I mean? Like it's underestimating how much people have incontinence out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, reported versus probably reality.
Exactly.
Correct.
Because of the things that we just talked about and the stigma. But I do want to like kind of like shift to kind of like how do people I mean, whether it be the patient itself, whether it be the caregivers, let's talk about the emotional toll. What toll does it take emotionally on individuals who are challenged with incontinence? And maybe you could kind of tag on, and what does it do to the caregivers too and family members? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that we talk with a lot of people about. So, it's interesting. If you are a person who has incontinence yourself and you have your faculties, it can be devastating, debilitating. I compare it to if you or I were scheduled to go drink those beers in Poland right now, right? But you had a bug.
Yeah.
You might not share all the details with me, but you might say, hey, Deanna, you know what? I know we were scheduled to go on Saturday. I've got a bug. Let's make it next Saturday, right?
Yeah.
People with incontinence that have their faculties, they can, figuratively speaking, have a bug every day because they're afraid, right? What if I go out and I have an accident? And so that can lead to social isolation. It can lead to depression. Those would probably be the two main things. It can lead to, gee, I don't want company coming over because I'm fearful, or maybe I unintentionally voided in my sofa at home, and now I've got urine odor in the hall, and I'm trying to figure out how to, to get it out. Stress. I think of males, for example, that maybe have had prostate cancer, and they may have had prostate cancer surgery, and they may become incontinent at some level after the surgery, and they may have to go back to work, and they're thinking, gee, I hope I don't have an accident. I've heard people that say I always bring a set of extra clothes in the car. So different stress factors for the person, and then for the caregiver.
Yeah.
Gosh, I call it deep in the weeds. If you are a caregiver who is deep in the weeds of continuously having to change sheets and change soiled garments, there can be factors where some folks may say, I love my spouse, but I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. And therefore, you may have people, older adults that have been married for 50 years, 60 years, and now they're having to separate, leaving their home where one of those folks says, can't do it anymore, and their spouse transitions into a senior living community because of incontinence challenges. Certain folks unintentionally, right? It can lead to frustration and resentment towards their loved ones because they're the ones that are constantly in the weeds, so to speak. I know one of your specialties is sleep medicine. So I know you can appreciate lack of sleep often happens for not only that person, but also the caregiver. And that can ripple to, my goodness, now I might have lack of nutrition because I'm sleeping during the day when I should be at night. I'm tired, I'm groggy. I don't want to go out and take a walk because I'm too tired because I was up all night. Clinical risk, someone who's groggy getting up at night because they're uncomfortable because they're wet, they fall. That can lead to an ugly outcomes. So when people really think about a core of being incontinent, there are so many unfortunate tentacles to it that can be
Yeah.
ugly sometimes.
And I'm going to dive deeper into the word dementia. It's something that's very passionate to me. I actually I work with many different assisted livings, and one thing that makes dementia worse is being isolated, is being depressed. And when you said that people with incontinence will tend to be a little isolated, not invite people over, it seems like it's a vicious cycle, in that they need to socialize, they need to be out there. And there's another barrier to prevent this, making their underlying dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's or whatever it is, even worse. So I think people don't realize, we just think of incontinence as that embarrassment, you're leaking urine. It's much more than that. And I like how you're incorporating other things into it. So good insight there.
Yeah, especially, when you bring up dementia, you could have an individual with early onset, and if they were living, whether it's at home or in a community, if they were able to still go out and be active and have that brain going all the time and learning, that would help the dementia. But if you rewind that and they have incontinence as well and they feel isolated, you could have continued incontinence that could progress, but you could also have early onset that's now moving forward because of that lack of stimuli.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about some misconceptions. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's a bunch of them out there. So tell me the top ones that comes to mind. Speaking to caregivers and healthcare providers like myself, you know what I mean? I didn't specialize in incontinence. So what are some misconceptions that are out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest one out there is that incontinence is a normal part of aging, and that is myth. It is not a normal part of aging, but it is a very common part of aging. But there's an underlying reason why someone may be incontinent. And as we get older and have, unfortunately, more chronic conditions, those chronic conditions often lead to incontinence. And that's why the myth becomes, oh, gee, that person is an older adult, they're incontinent because they're older. Not true. Something is causing it. But it could be someone who has arthritis and their legs just don't work as good as they used to. And they're trying to get to that restroom. Their faculties are working. And they become incontinent because the legs don't work. So the legs is kind of the root of in that example. So that's one of them. The other one that I like to bring up, because our company is very focused on improving incontinence whenever possible first, because the reality is nobody wants to be incontinent. So I think that can be a myth that once someone is incontinent, that they are always incontinent and that's the way it is. And that's not true either. There are things people can do to try and help people who are incontinent be less incontinent. That may be a review of medicines that they're taking.
Well said. I like that.
It could be a whole, it could be, people could sleep on one side of the bed that's closest to the bathroom and their spouse could be incontinent, and it could just be a flip of, you know what? If my spouse is now closer to the bathroom, maybe they can get there and they have less leaks. So there's lots of different ways to help improve incontinence. So it doesn't have to be a thing that is never incurable. There are ways to mitigate it.
And let me just kind of parlay on that. So I know I love my residents and fellows when they discharge patients sometimes, especially patients with heart failure, they'll put their water pill, their loop diuretic, their Lasix at night. You know what I mean? And maybe that's not the best time to give that medication. And I think what you're referring to, there is something called functional incontinence where everything's working fine, but because of physical disability or cognitive disability, they just can't make it to the freaking bathroom, and we don't think of those things all the time. So it's amazing how much you're right. We need to incorporate folks like you and the medical community to kind of put our minds together. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
So let's talk about this. Okay. So let's talk about some innovations. I know you got a company. I know you're awesome. So what are some of these products innovations that are changing the landscape of incontinence care? And tell me, how can they contribute to all this stigma, reducing the stigma that we mentioned earlier in the podcast?
Yeah. So, I tie with innovation the word education. Uh,
I like that. I dig it.
it's so, it makes so much sense. So,
Yeah.
my opinion is in the US for a long, long time, no ill intent. But I think because of the stigma, because of the taboo, incontinence products have been thought of as a disposable commodity. A brief is a brief is a brief. And what our company is doing, along with some other companies out there, which is fantastic, but we're trying to shift that landscape to say, wait a minute, let's look at products a little bit differently and features of the products with innovation. Full breathability is a big feature, something that people should be aware of and educated about. If skin can breathe, it should not break down. And so in 2025, we should not be fixing wounds related to urinary incontinence. The point being, we should never have that skin breakdown taking place if we have a fully breathable product. So full breathability is.
Yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean to the layperson? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it means your vapors of your skin have to breathe. And I compare it to if someone put a plastic glove on their hand and they shut off the part of it, your hand would start to sweat, right? Because you've got moisture and closeness. With full breathe, and you think if you've got a product on in the private areas, you've got heat, moisture, that skin can't breathe, there's moisture, it can start to break down. When you have a fully breathable product, skin vapors can come in, they can go out, and therefore you don't have that heat, moisture.
Yeah.
Letting the skin have good integrity, maintaining skin integrity.
Yeah.
So that is super important with products, and just knowing about tools to help people measure hips and waist for people that need products versus height and weight. People will come to us and say, gee, my dad is 200 pounds and he's, 6 feet tall. What product? And we'll say, well, if you can help us, if you can get the hips and waist, that's a better measurement. So it's that education that makes all the difference in the world. If someone is in the right size product with the right absorbency, style, fit, those types of things make a world of difference in helping people manage continence care better.
So breathability sounds like this should be standard of care when you purchase a product. It's not the standard?
Unfortunately, Dr. Raj, it is not the standard. And and to your point, it absolutely should be. It absolutely should be. But it is...
Wow.
It is not. It's changing, and that's a good thing. It is changing, and I mean full breathability, 100%, not just wings, not just the side, full breathability. But you are correct, because if we change that, then wounds come down, and cost associated, right, with wound care management all come down. So a simple change into a good quality product makes all the difference from a care perspective and a financial perspective.
So this kind of brings up another misconception thing, but this time it's misconceptions that people have about the incontinence products themselves. So what are the common misconceptions that you hear? And maybe I addressed one. I thought that incontinence were breathable, but what are some other common ones that you've heard about these products that people have? You know what I mean? Misconceptions.
Yeah. I really think, unfortunately, people can often look at a product, and especially if you go into an aisle in a grocery store or big box store, and you see brand after brand after brand, size after size after size. A misconception can be that they're all the same. So which one will I pick? And I always think, I don't know why I use a male as an example, because I think it's even more uncomfortable. But a male who may have a mom, and the mom is in a long-term care community where the residents are responsible for their products, that male may go into, I've got to buy one for mom. This feels a little uncomfortable. I don't know what I'm looking at. Gee, is mom a medium or is mom a large? I think large is better because it will hold more. And down there I see one $1 less than this brand. I'll get that one. That should hold more. Mom's a large. They bring it to mom, no ill will. They love their mom, no ill intent. But mom could actually be a medium. And because she has a large product, which that's a misconception, bigger does not mean that it holds more. The secret is in the absorbency, what they call cellulose pulp and polymer, which wicks urine away from the skin and locks it in place. So it has to do with the way the product is constructed. But that community unintentionally now, they put that large on mom, right? And so what happens? Mom's wearing a product that's too big. Mom can leak. Now mom gets up because she's wet and uncomfortable. Mom falls.
Yeah.
Mom is now on the floor, unfortunately, and that community member now is calling that same son that brought the products in to say, I'm so sorry, mom fell. And that son could be thinking, what do you mean mom fell? We're paying you to take care of mom. And he's actually the unintentional culprit so there's misinformation, but that ties to your question about bigger does not mean more absorbent.
Yep.
That's a misconception.
Yeah, I see it in the hospital all the time for no ill will. The diapers, lack of a better term they use, never fit. You know what I mean? Because you're right. You're kind of pigeonholed to small, medium, large. Everyone has different dimensions. Everyone has different, comorbidities. And yes, it's so hard to get appropriate sizing. I agree. True. But one thing that I wanted to bring up, because I find this kind of humorous, or I was frustrated when I needed to purchase some of these products, for family members. You go to the store, you feel bad for your loved one, you're why me, why them? And then you look at the packaging, and they don't really pick the right packaging to correlate with how horrible it is sometimes that someone has incontinence, because they're always smiling and happy. And I'm like, you don't have incontinence on that package. You're too young to be having this. So it's so hard. What's the medium? You don't want people to be depressed when you pick up the package. But one day I hope there's appropriate packaging, when they pick the people on it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it ties to, it's interesting. I think the same thing. And I approached our marketing department to understand other competitor brands that have people dancing in the street and so forth. Exactly. But what's interesting that I didn't think of is all different levels of incontinence. So if you are marketing to someone that maybe has light incontinence, that packaging might be very different than someone who's very deep in the weeds with very heavy to severe incontinence. So I know our company, I think does a really nice job of trying to position the packaging for people to understand what's in the package, number one, but also from a care, compassion standpoint. When they look at the package, we want them to see, okay, this is attractive, this isn't scary, and this company's, through their labeling and so forth, is here to help. We do our best.
Of course. Now, this question I'm excited for, because let's kind of talk about incontinence and how it reduces, hospital admissions and, having problems that just come up. So can better incontinence products and you can just talk about your own, you know what I mean? Do they reduce urinary tract infections? Do they reduce skin breakdowns and ulcers or even hospitalizations? Do they factor in?
100% they do. Better quality products do. And I'll give you three quick examples.
Yeah, fire away.
Having that product that we talked about with full breathability, that should prevent a person from getting a skin breakdown directly due to urinary incontinence. There can be other reasons, other medical conditions, but that fully breathable skin, we should never get to the ugly. So yes, there, I put a check. And that ties with hospital admissions, because depending on the state where someone may be living in a senior living community, if a pressure sore gets to a certain stage 1, 2, 3, 4, it varies, they have to leave that community. And that's time, that's worry, that's all parties involved in the care. So it reduces that risk of a skin breakdown. UTIs, little known secret. My teammates and I, when we go to conferences and even out in the public through educational demos that we do, we tear up our brief after we pour water to show how much it holds, but we pull up what they call an acquisition distribution layer, an ADL, which when someone voids, that urine spreads long and wide. When you pull that up, people should be looking for a product that has no plastic backing. Ours is a soft non-woven, no plastic backing. If you think of it, many products, unfortunately, have a plastic backing on their acquisition distribution layer. You think of two things, heat, moisture, plastic. Here's skin breakdown in the private areas. But also, Dr. Raj, correct me if I'm wrong, but women have shorter urethras. And if you have urine microscopically pooling up into the bladder, we have bacteria that can go, and a person can get a UTI and they can go to the doctor, and the doctor may not have been educated about an acquisition distribution layer. They write a script. But if that person goes back and they sit in the same product that has plastic, they go round robin, and a physician may say, you might be prone. And not always. It's a change in product. So we have several testimonials of folks that have said, Mom doesn't get UTIs anymore, or our residents, the UTI risk has been reduced substantially. So that is a big factor. And as you know, UTIs can lead to delirium. And here we go with all of these ugly outcomes that with good products can be reduced. And then admissions, I think of, unfortunately, again, just if you and I put a quarter's worth of water on our seats right now, we'd probably say, let's take 5 minutes and go change because it's uncomfortable. So if someone's putting a lot of water, in their bed at night, and if they're using a product that's not absorbing, they can wake up. And if they wake up, they're groggy and they can fall. And that can lead to an ER visit of the fall itself.
100%. And we can talk about this all day. And that one urinary tract infection in mom and dad when they're older can lead to a kidney infection, can lead to sepsis, can lead to so many different things. So any little thing we could do makes a difference. I know the answer to this, but I want you to answer it. Are higher quality products annually more cost effective in the long run, even though they may cost a little bit more?
Absolutely. When someone's in the right size product, the right size style, the right size absorbency, really only 3 to 4 product changes are necessary in a 24-hour period. And so even with the senior living communities, our team is out there talking to the accountants and the CFOs that are looking at spreadsheets, and we're saying, please stop looking at unit cost. Let's look at big picture overall value, because if you're using a product that's 50 cents per piece, but you're changing someone 7, 8, 9 times a day, you might be better off spending 60 cents a piece. And I just toss these numbers loosely, but 3 to 4, and then less changes, less washcloths, less changes, less caregiver time, whether it's time in the house or a paid caregiver, less accidents. What does it cost? What does it cost to replace a microfiber chair
Yeah.
or sofa? What's the cost of a CNA that maybe got a shoulder injury because they're changing someone
Yeah.
relentlessly over and over? What's the cost of replacing a CNA because they say I can't do it anymore? So yes, overall value with better products, 100%.
So I'm
People are
gonna
better off.
sneak in. I'm gonna sneak in a question before my last one. So,
Yeah.
ha are there been any studies comparing like your products to other products? Because I think that putting my dorky medical hat on,
Mhm.
if they showed that have an endpoint decreased admissions, decreased urinary tract, just decreased, skin breakdown, that would definitely motivate many people, including myself, to kind of gravitate towards one product. So
Yeah.
are there such studies out there where you guys go head to head with other products, or is that like suicide to do something like that? You know what I mean?
It's not necessarily that it's suicide to do it. The answer for the most part is no. There aren't a lot of studies, but I will share with you the reason why. In the incontinence industry, from a manufacturer standpoint, there's lots of brands, lots of options, and the landscape changes with levels of absorbency, styles, things like that. So to compare directly, as soon as you get data,
Yeah.
it very well could be outdated
I
data
see.
because something has changed. Our company and many other companies, there are other quality brands out there as well, will often give free samples or let people's, whether it's someone in their home, we ask them, gee, please send us hips, waist, what's your address? And we'll send a couple of product samples for them to try. We want
That
people to
makes sense.
try
Yeah.
before you buy. And then in these senior living communities, we'll say, gee, please pick 3, 4, 5 residents, and please pick your residents that are the most severely challenged with incontinence, and let us ship you
I like
products
that. Yeah.
for them to try. And that's how we get testimonials versus clear studies. But in those testimonials, that's where we do hear really the stories of why
Yeah.
we do what we do. How it just changes lives for people.
Yeah. So let me close it off. This is great, man. I didn't think I would be able to talk about urinary incontinence for more than half an hour, but apparently we can. So I think this is a good closing question. I just want to know, how can we, meaning you and me, how can we all do a better job in educating children's, young adults, healthcare, to be more inclusive and respectful, understanding and people with incontinence and managing their care?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And
Mhm.
I would say, the more we can educate ourselves and the more we can make incontinence, the topic of incontinence, more mainstream, and less taboo, that will ripple out eventually into it not having the stigma tied to it. But I think for people that either themselves are incontinent or are caring for someone who is incontinent, I would advise to seek education. And there's a lot of places to get education, but to understand what it means to be incontinent, what are the types of incontinence, how do you become less incontinent, all those things. So I think it's about educating at all ages, breaking down the stigma. And then if you have a loved one that is incontinent, come from a place of love and care versus embarrassment or even brushing it under the rug, right? Well, we won't
Yep.
talk about. No, let's talk about it. Gee, gee, mom, what's happening here? Can you get to you can ask questions that don't directly mention the word incontinence without getting to what I mean by that is, if you notice mom is incontinent in her home, it can be, gee, mom, how are your legs feeling? Are you still able to get to the kitchen? Yeah. Are you still able to get to the bathroom? There are ways of creatively finding out information, but coming from a place of hope, care, and love, which I think most people come from that place anyway. But those would be a few of my suggestions.
Well, I love those. And I just want to say in closure, you're awesome. I dig this podcast. I think my listeners are going to love it also, because you're right. It's taboo. No one raises their hand to say, I'm going through it. I know a loved one. And I really hope that everyone got valuable information. And last but not least, if they want to get a hold of you, I'll put in the show notes, but is there a website or any social media stuff they should know?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Dr. Raj, more than you know. Anytime we can educate. But our Seni USA is Seni, SENI -USA.com. And there's a lot of good information. And there's also a link there if anybody's interested in a free sample. So we have our LinkedIn and Facebook page, our parent company, TZMOUSA, can be found on LinkedIn and Facebook for different information as well. And then I'm on LinkedIn, and I can be located through our corporate offices as well. So happy to answer questions, get samples in the hands of anybody who's interested.
Awesome. Well, everyone out there, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dr. Raj podcast. And as always, I'll be back in a couple weeks to have another awesome / interesting topic.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Dr. Raj podcast. If you enjoy the show, then please make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app and leave a rating while you're there. This show is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. This has been a production of MedPrep2Go, and you can learn more at medprep2go.com.